The Goal, A Process of Ongoing Improvement by Eliyahu M. Goldratt and Jeff Cox. Introduction. Imagine this. You pull into work one morning, a little earlier than usual, hoping to get a head start on the day. But something's wrong. In your designated parking spot, the one with your title painted on it, Plant Manager, sits a gleaming crimson Mercedes. And you just know, it belongs to your boss, Bill Peach. A man who likes to make subtle statements. Before you can even get a cup of coffee, your whole world erupts. A shift supervisor, a union steward, and a machinist are all yelling at you at once. Your boss has been storming around the factory floor, yelling orders, threatening to fire people, and has brought the entire plant to a grinding halt over a single late order. When you finally get to your office, your boss is sitting in your chair, behind your desk. And he looks at you with eyes that say, "This is your neck." He doesn't just tell you the plant is in trouble. He tells you it's losing money, pulling the entire division down with it. And then he delivers the final blow. You've got 3 months to turn this plant around. Or I'm recommending we shut it down. This is the world of Alex Rogo, the hero of a story that, on the surface, is about a struggling factory. But it's so much more than that. This story, The Goal, written by an Israeli physicist named Eliyahu M. Goldratt, has sold over 6 million copies and has been translated into more than 27 languages. It's not just a business book, it's a phenomenon. Why? Because it reveals a secret, a profound and simple truth about how any system works, whether it's a factory, a hospital, a school, or even your own life. Goldratt wasn't a typical business guru. He was a scientist who looked at the chaos of a factory and saw an underlying order. He believed that even the most complex problems have a simple root cause. And by the end of our time together today, you will understand that secret. You'll learn how to find the one thing, the single leverage point in any system, that can change everything. You'll learn how to see the world not as a series of complicated problems, but as a system with a simple, elegant solution waiting to be discovered. So, settle in. We're about to join Alex Rogo on a journey that will not only save his plant and his job, but might just change the way you think about everything. Book summary. Our story begins with Alex Rogo in a world of hurt. He's a 38-year-old plant manager who did everything right. He worked hard, got his engineering degree, earned his MBA, and climbed the corporate ladder at a company called Unico. Now, he's been sent back to his hometown of Barrington to manage the local plant, and it's a complete disaster. Everything is late. Customer orders are backed up for months. The factory floor is an ocean of inventory, piles and piles of parts that nobody seems to need, sitting next to machines that are waiting for the one part they do need. The financial numbers are a nightmare. Efficiencies, the holy grail of manufacturing, look good on paper, but the plant is bleeding money. And if that weren't enough, Alex's personal life is crumbling. His wife, Julie, feels abandoned. He's always at the plant, putting out fires, and when he is home, his mind is still at work. Their marriage is hanging by a thread. The morning after his boss, Bill Peach, delivers the 3-month ultimatum, Alex feels completely lost. Walking through his plant, he sees everyone working hard. Machines are running, people are busy, parts are being made. But it's all just chaos. They're busy being inefficient. He knows something is fundamentally wrong, but he has no idea what it is. It's in this moment of desperation that Alex has a chance encounter that changes everything. Stuck at an airport, he runs into a man he knew from his student days, an Israeli physicist named Jonah. Alex, trying to make conversation, tells Jonah about his plant and mentions, with a bit of pride, that they've just installed some new robots that boosted productivity in one department by 36%. Jonah just looks at him, takes a puff from his cigar, and asks a simple question. So, your company is making 36% more money from your plant just from installing some robots? Alex has to admit, well, no. Jonah presses him. Was your plant able to ship even one more product per day as a result of installing those robots? Alex has to check the numbers, but he doubts it. Did you fire anyone? Jonah asks. No, Alex explains. They have an agreement with the union. They just shifted people around. Then tell me, Jonah says, his eyes twinkling, did your inventories go down? Alex just chuckles. Inventories haven't gone down. If anything, they've gone up. Jonah leans in. Then you can't tell me these robots increased your plant's productivity. He explains that Alex is running a very inefficient plant, despite what his measurements say. His measurements, Jonah tells him, are lying. Alex thinks he's running an efficient plant, but his thinking is wrong. Productivity, Jonah says, is the act of bringing a company closer to its goal. Every action that brings a company closer to its goal is productive. Every action that does not is not productive. It sounds like simple common sense. But then Jonah delivers the knockout punch. Your problem, he tells Alex, is you don't know what the goal is. Alex is stunned. Of course he knows the goal. It's to produce products efficiently. To increase market share. To be on the leading edge of technology. Jonah shakes his head at every answer. Wrong, he says. There is only one goal, no matter what the company. But before he can explain, his flight is called. As he steps onto the plane, he turns back to Alex. Think about it, Alex. You can find the answer with your own mind. And just like that, he's gone, leaving Alex with a cigar and a question that will turn his world upside down. What is the goal? This question haunts Alex. He walks out of a high-level division meeting, unable to listen to the corporate jargon about operational indices and strategic expenses. It all sounds meaningless now. He drives to a hillside overlooking his plant and just thinks. What is the goal? Is it to buy materials cheap? No. That just leads to warehouses full of stuff you don't need. Is it to employ people? No, because companies lay people off to survive. Is it technology, quality, efficiency? All of these are important, but are they the goal itself? A company can have the best quality, the most advanced technology, and still go bankrupt. All of these are just means to an end. They are necessary, but they are not the goal. The goal has to be something else. And then, sitting there, looking down at his plant, Alex finally sees it. The answer is so simple, so obvious, he almost laughs. The goal of a manufacturing organization is to make money. Everything else? Everything? Is just a means to achieve that goal. This realization is the first great breakthrough. But it leads to an even bigger problem. If the goal is to make money, how do you know if any given action on the factory floor is actually helping? The traditional measurements, like the cost per part or local efficiencies that everyone in his company is obsessed with, are clearly not working. They're encouraging people to do things that look productive locally but are actually hurting the company globally. Alex is busy making parts that just end up as excess inventory, tying up cash and making it harder to ship the orders that do make money. He needs a new way to see his world. Desperate, he tracks Jonah down again, this time reaching him by phone in London. Alex explains his breakthrough and his new problem. Jonah is pleased. Alex, you have hit upon something very important, he says. He explains that the conventional measurements don't work well for the day-to-day operations of a factory. So, he developed his own. There are 3, he says. Just 3 measurements that tell you everything you need to know. First, there is throughput. Jonah defines this very precisely. It's the rate at which the system generates money through sales, not through production. If you make something but don't sell it, it's not throughput. This is a critical distinction. Second, there is inventory. Jonah's definition is also unique. It is all the money that the system has invested in purchasing things which it intends to sell. This isn't just finished goods. It's the raw materials, the machines, the buildings, anything that represents tied-up money. And third, there is operational expense. This is all the money the system spends in order to turn inventory into throughput. This includes everything from direct labor to electricity to the CEO's salary. With these three simple measurements, the goal can be expressed in a new way. The goal is to increase throughput while simultaneously reducing both inventory and operational expense. This is a powerful new lens. Now, Alex can look at any action in his plant and ask, does this increase throughput? Does it decrease inventory? Does it decrease operational expense? If an action doesn't do at least one of these things, it's not productive. He looks at his expensive robots through this new lens. Did they increase throughput? No. Did they reduce inventory? No. They made it worse. Did they reduce operational expense? No. They actually increased depreciation costs, and no one was laid off. The robots, which everyone celebrated as a massive productivity gain, were actually counterproductive. Alex is starting to see the truth, but he's also more confused than ever. He and his team now know the goal and have a new way to measure progress toward it. But they're still stuck. They don't know how to change the plant to make the numbers go in the right direction. And that's when Alex Rogo, the plant manager, becomes a Boy Scout troop leader for a weekend. And it's on a 10-mile hike through the woods that he finally understands everything. Alex has volunteered to lead his son Dave's troop on an overnight hike. The plan is simple: walk 10 miles to a campsite called Devil's Gulch. Alex, a manager, thinks in terms of averages. The average person walks about 2 miles per hour. So, 10 miles should take about 5 hours. Easy. He lines the boys up in single file and they set off. Alex is at the back to keep an eye on everyone. After just a few hundred yards, he notices something strange. The line of scouts is spreading out. Big gaps are forming. He can barely see the kid at the front of the line. What's happening? He yells for them to double time and close the gaps, which they do, running and puffing until they're all bunched up again. But as soon as they start walking at a normal pace, the line begins to stretch out once more. Alex is perplexed. Everyone is walking at roughly the same average pace. Why can't they stay together? And then he discovers Herbie. Herbie is a friendly, slightly overweight kid in the middle of the line. And he's the slowest walker in the troop. He's not lazy, he's doing his best. But his best is just slower than everyone else's. Alex watches the line. He sees a boy up ahead stop for a second to adjust his backpack. In that moment, a gap of 20 feet opens up. But when a boy walks a little faster, can he close the gap? Only up to a point. He can only walk as fast as the boy in front of him. His speed is dependent on the person ahead. This is what Jonah called dependent events. One event must happen before another can begin. The boy in front has to walk the trail before the boy behind him can. Alex also notices that each boy's pace varies. Sometimes they walk a little faster, sometimes a little slower. These are statistical fluctuations. No one walks at a perfectly constant speed. And on this trail, Alex sees these two phenomena combine with devastating effect. The ability for any boy to go faster than the average is limited by the boy in front of him. But the ability for any boy to go slower is unlimited. A boy can trip, stop to tie his shoe, or just get tired. Every time a slow fluctuation happens, it creates a gap. And because of the dependency, these gaps don't average out. They accumulate. The slowness gets passed down the line. The boy at the very end of the line, Alex, can only go as fast as the slowest person in the entire troop. It doesn't matter how fast the kid at the front is walking. The troop's overall speed, its throughput of walked trail, is determined by its slowest member, Herbie. Herbie is the bottleneck. The distance between the first boy and the last boy is the troop's inventory of trail being walked. As the gaps widen, inventory goes up. And as inventory goes up, the troop's throughput goes down, because the line gets longer and longer and the last person falls further and further behind. This is a stunning revelation. To prove it to himself, Alex invents a game during their lunch break using bowls and matchsticks. Each bowl represents a step in a production process, and a die roll determines how many matches can be moved from one bowl to the next. He sets up a perfectly balanced system, where each station has the same average capacity. He expects to move an average of 3.5 matches per turn through the system. But the game is a disaster. The statistical fluctuations of the die rolls and the dependency of the bowls cause inventory to pile up in some bowls while others are starved. Throughput is far below what he predicted. The balanced plant doesn't work. In fact, it's a catastrophe. A balanced plant is the worst possible scenario, because when one resource falls behind due to a random fluctuation, there's no excess capacity anywhere to catch up. The delays just accumulate. Now Alex understands. His plant, with its obsession with keeping everyone busy and balancing capacity, is designed for failure. He has to change the system. On the hike, what does he do? First, he does something that seems completely counterintuitive. He puts Herbie, the slowest kid, at the very front of the line. The faster kids behind him start to complain. They have to walk at Herbie's pace. But an amazing thing happens: the line stays together. The gaps disappear. They are all moving at Herbie's speed, but they are moving as a unit. They have balanced the flow to the speed of the constraint, not the capacity. But Herbie is still slow. The troop is still going to be late. The next step is to make Herbie faster. How? They look in his backpack. It's filled with useless weight, a six-pack of soda, a heavy iron skillet, cans of spaghetti. They distribute the weight among the other boys. Suddenly, Herbie is lighter. He can walk faster. And because Herbie is faster, the entire troop is faster. The lessons are clear. 1. Find the constraint. Find your Herbie. 2. Exploit the constraint. Don't let Herbie carry a heavy pack. Make sure the bottleneck is only working on the most important things and is never, ever idle. An hour lost at a bottleneck is an hour lost for the entire system. 3. Subordinate everything else to the constraint. Make everyone else march to the beat of Herbie's drum. Don't let the non-bottlenecks produce more than the bottleneck can handle. This seems inefficient, but it's the only way to prevent chaos and excess inventory. An hour saved at a non-bottleneck is a mirage. It doesn't help the system at all. 4. Elevate the constraint. Find ways to give Herbie more capacity. Offload some of his work to others. 5. If the constraint is broken, go back to step 1. Once Herbie is no longer the slowest, a new constraint will appear. The process of improvement is ongoing. Armed with this new understanding, Alex returns to his plant. He and his team launch a search for Herbie. They don't have to look far. They find 2. The first is the NCX-10, a state-of-the-art machine that is supposed to be incredibly efficient. The second is the heat treat department, a pair of old, grimy furnaces. These are the plant's bottlenecks. The demand on them is greater than their capacity. And just like on the hike, Massive piles of inventory are sitting in front of them, while the rest of the plant is starving for the parts they produce. Now, Alex and his team apply the lessons from the hike. First, they exploit the bottlenecks. They realize that the bottlenecks are wasting precious time. The NCX-10 sits idle during lunch breaks. The heat treat furnaces are often run with small, inefficient batches just to please an expediter screaming for a hot part. They find that defective parts are being processed by the bottlenecks, only to be scrapped later, wasting bottleneck time that can never be recovered. They make simple changes. They stagger breaks so the bottlenecks never stop. They put quality control before the bottlenecks, not after, to ensure they only work on good parts. They establish a rule that the furnaces must be run with full batches. Second, they subordinate everything else. They create a new priority system. Parts that need to go through a bottleneck get a red tag. All other parts get a green tag. The rule for the whole plant becomes simple: red tag parts get worked on first, always. If a non-bottleneck machine is in the middle of a big run of green tag parts and a small batch of red tag parts arrives, they must stop what they're doing and process the red parts. This feels wrong to everyone. It hurts the efficiencies of the non-bottleneck machines. But it's the only way to ensure the bottlenecks are never starved for work. They are subordinating the entire plant to the needs of the constraint. Third, they elevate the bottlenecks. They look for ways to increase their capacity. For the NCX-10, Bob Donovan, the production manager, finds an old machine, a Smegma, that they had sold for scrap. He brings it back and reactivates it, along with 2 other old machines, to offload some of the work from the NCX-10. For heat treat, they discover that 20% of the parts going through it don't actually need to be heat treated at all. It was a process change made years ago to improve efficiency on a non-bottleneck machine. By reversing that decision, they free up a huge amount of capacity. The results are immediate and dramatic. The flow of parts through the plant becomes smooth and predictable. The mountains of work in process inventory begin to melt away. And most importantly, throughput skyrockets. They start shipping late orders, then they catch up on all their late orders, and soon they are shipping orders ahead of schedule. Their production lead time, which used to be 3 or 4 months, drops to just 4 weeks. Alex goes to Johnny Johns, the head of marketing, and tells him to start promising customers 4-week delivery. Johns is skeptical, but the results are undeniable. They win a massive order from a key customer, Bucky Burnside, the same customer whose late order started the crisis 3 months earlier. They had lost Burnside's business to a competitor, but the competitor couldn't deliver. Unico steps in and agrees to ship 1,000 units, not all at once, but in batches of 250 per week for 4 weeks. This is something they never could have done before, but with their new system and smaller batch sizes, it's easy. The plant becomes a hero. Burnside himself flies in on a helicopter to personally thank the workers. The plant isn't just surviving, it's thriving. It goes from being the division's biggest loser to its most profitable asset. At the end of the 3 months, Alex doesn't get fired. He gets promoted. He is named the new head of the entire division. The journey isn't over. Alex realizes that the process of ongoing improvement never ends. As they solve one constraint, a new one emerges. First it was the machines. Then it was the material release policy. Then it became the market itself. They didn't have enough orders to keep the newly efficient plant busy. Each time, they applied the same 5 focusing steps to identify and elevate the new constraint. In the end, Alex Rogo saves more than just his plant. He learns a new way of thinking. He learns to see the inherent simplicity in complexity. He learns to focus his energy not on fighting fires everywhere, but on identifying and improving the one thing that truly matters. And in the process, he also saves his marriage, because he learns to apply the same logical, caring approach to the most important system of all, his family. He learns that the goal isn't just about making money or being efficient. It's about a process of ongoing improvement in every aspect of life. Commentary. So, what are we to make of this story? On one level, the goal is a brilliant and simple introduction to a powerful management philosophy. But I think its impact runs much deeper than that. The reason this book has resonated with millions of people, from Fortune 500 CEOs to school teachers to hospital administrators, is that it speaks to a fundamental truth about life. We live in a world that feels incredibly complex. We're constantly bombarded with information, with competing priorities, with endless lists of things we should be doing to improve our lives, our careers, our relationships. We try to do it all. We try to optimize every part of our lives, to be more efficient at work, to be the perfect parent, to exercise every day, to read more books, to maintain our friendships. We try to balance everything. And what is the result? We often feel like Alex Rogo in his chaotic factory, busy, stressed, but not actually making progress toward what truly matters. We feel overwhelmed. The profound lesson of the goal is the power of focus. It teaches us that in any system, in any endeavor, there are not 100 things that matter. There are not 10. There are only a very, very few, and often, just one. This one thing is the constraint, the bottleneck, the Herbie. It is the single factor that is holding the entire system back. Think about what this means. It means that most of our efforts to improve are wasted. We spend our time optimizing things that don't matter. We work hard to save an hour on a task that isn't the bottleneck, and as Jonah says, an hour saved at a non-bottleneck is a mirage. It doesn't help the system at all. But an hour lost at the bottleneck is an hour lost for the entire system, forever. This idea is both liberating and incredibly demanding. It's liberating because it gives us permission to stop trying to do everything. It tells us to find the one thing that is most holding us back and focus all our energy there. It simplifies the world. But it's also demanding, because it forces us to think. It forces us to ask the hard questions. What is my goal? And what is the single biggest constraint preventing me from reaching it? Answering these questions isn't always easy. It requires honesty, clarity, and the courage to ignore the noise and focus on the essential. What is the Herbie in your life right now? Maybe you want to get into a great college, but your constraint isn't your intelligence or your extracurriculars. It's your tendency to procrastinate on that one difficult class. That procrastination is your bottleneck. Until you address it, improving anything else won't make a difference. Maybe you want to build a closer relationship with your family, but your constraint is the habit of scrolling through your phone for an hour every night instead of having a real conversation. That habit is the bottleneck. The beauty of the goal is that it gives us a process, the 5 focusing steps, not just for business, but for life. Identify your constraint. Don't waste its time or capacity. Subordinate everything else to it. Find ways to elevate it. And then, when it's no longer the constraint, find the new one and begin again. It is a process of ongoing improvement. This book is a reminder that common sense is not so common. The ideas within it feel so obvious once you hear them, but they run contrary to so much of what we are taught: to stay busy, to be efficient everywhere, to treat every task as equally important. Goldratt's genius was to wrap these profound truths in a simple story that anyone can understand. It's a story about a factory, yes, but it's really a story about us. It's about finding clarity in the chaos. That was the book summary of The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt and Jeff Cox. We've explored the main journey today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you walk the path yourself. The true magic of this book isn't just in the lessons, it's in the way the story unfolds, the way you find yourself thinking alongside Alex, trying to solve the puzzle with him. This summary is meant to show you if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today sparked a sense of recognition or curiosity in you, then I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just learning a new theory, it's an experience that can genuinely shift how you see the challenges and opportunities in your own life. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, I'd be grateful if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.